On the Rise with Benny, and today's On the Rise guest is a singer-songwriter. And when I tell you, I am so excited for you guys to get to know her. She is absolutely incredible, but she's written songs for other artists and is also a musician herself, and a performer. She won the CMA Rising Star Award. She is on multiple watch lists for up-and-coming artists, and she actually recently went viral on TikTok with her song Devil's Money. I welcome Kentucky native Mary Kutter to On the Rise. Mary, I'm so happy to have you on, and there is a lot to talk about.
Oh, Queen, I am so pumped to be here with you. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, of course. So just to kind of get this rolling, I want to know the background of you. Like your career, you've people are going to probably lose their mind when they know you actually hosted your own country radio show. You write songs for other artists, you're releasing your own music. So just give us your story. Who is Mary?
Well, it is kind of interesting. I guess, everyone's story is probably usually a squiggly line, not just like a straight line, and I know my world has been, and I grew up in a small town in Kentucky. It's called Springfield, Kentucky, right outside of Bardstown, where Devil's Money takes place, actually, which we'll talk about that later. But I grew up in Springfield, and I started singing in church, and I would write songs in my bedroom, the kind of typical situation. But, it never even occurred to me to move to Nashville. It might as well have been like Australia or something, although where I grew up, it's just 2.5 hours away. And I was singing at a festival, and I ran into this feller who owned a radio station in Bardstown, and we talked, just said hi, then we kept on running into each other at different events that I'd be singing at. And he reached out to me and he asked if I would be interested in hosting a music variety show on his station. And I said yes. And that one thing totally changed the trajectory of my life. It was a weekly show. I would have 3 to 4 guests on every week. I'd interview them, they'd play. And there was a lot of folks from Nashville that were on radio tour, a lot like what you do, and so I have mad respect for what you do. Like, there's so many pieces of radio that, like, I would have never known into it until I did it. And I was like, whoa, there's so many pieces. But anyway, that's here to there. But I started, interviewing different folks, and I became friends with some of them. And they were like, well, do you write songs? And when I wasn't at the radio station, I was still doing mainly cover gigs in the area and making bread and butter that way. But I started writing with some of my new friends down in Nashville. And before I knew it, I was in Nashville 2-4 times a week. So I ended up moving down yonder, and I immediately started hosting writers' nights in Nashville. And that became my new day job, where, although it was technically at night, but I would, down in Nashville, if folks haven't been down there to see the writers' rounds, what that is 3 or 4 folks sit on stage, they sing original songs that they've written, and it's just so neat. They talk the backstories of how they wrote the song. It's all acoustic. And so I started hosting different ones of those in Nashville. And that was it was like a PhD course in songwriting, because I remember one of the shows that I hosted down there, I did that one for 10 months. I ended it right before COVID. And we had just under 500 different people that were on the show, like not repeats. And during that time, literally, Benny, like, everyone was talented. I could count on one hand folks weren't talented. Everyone was beautiful. Everyone was talented. Everyone had good songs. But I started seeing a difference with some folks that stood out. And I was like, well, why do these songs stand out? Because we'd have 12 guests a week with those writers' rounds. And so you do the math or whatever, how many songs that was, because each person would do 3 or 4 songs. And I heard a lot of songs. And anyway, it started clicking, in my noggin, a little bit of, what's the difference of good and great. And then COVID happened and everything shut down. I went back to Kentucky, to the farm, to, do the quarantine. And I was honestly so stressed out. I didn't know what to do, because everything was shut down. And I'd always been playing live shows, and all of that had stopped. Nashville had, whiplash, totally hit the brakes. And so I started writing on Zoom. And that ended up kind of squiggly lining to the next chapter of my life. Nate Smith, who he's just having a great year so
He's
far too.
killing it.
Forgot how many weeks his song's in #1 now, maybe 7 or 8 weeks, I don't even know. And I started writing with him on Zoom, and then we had some songs that, you know, we wrote together that changed our lives, Sleeve and Wreckage. And then I was writing with folks like Bailey Zimmerman, who I think is from your neck of the woods up in
He
Illinois.
is, yep.
Uh, of course, that whole thing happened and my world started changing. And
What was the song you wrote for him?
with Bailey, that's out right now, is Never Leave. And that went all the way to #1 on Sirius XM, which was my first one, which was really cool. And it was
did you get a little payday from that?
You know, I'm not gonna lie to you, I did buy quite a few shoes from that song. You know, everyone has their weaknesses with what they spend money on. Mine is definitely shoes. I love beautiful shoes. And you know, this is the thing, side note, I wasn't always that way with shoes. See, I'm 5'9", every bit of it. Honestly, I might even be taller. I count myself as 5'9", okay? And for years, I would never wear heels because I didn't want to be taller than I already was.
Embrace it.
Finally, I did. I remember once I was at the mall, and this was a couple of years ago, I was like, man, those shoes are so beautiful. Why am I not? Who cares if I'm super? It doesn't matter. And so when that switch flipped in my noggin, it was like, I guess I'm making up for lost time. You know what I'm saying? It's because I am like a shoe girl through and through now. But anyway, and you know, it's just kind of crazy. It was just so wild. And that's been all within like the last year or so, you know, in my writing world. And of course, you know, there's been other folks too, like Alexandra Kay, who's
I love her.
She's another Illinois girl. No, she's not. I'm wrong
Missouri.
on that.
I think she's Missouri.
You're right. She's Missouri. That's right. All in the beautiful part of middle America, right? And you know, I got a couple of songs with her that have done real good too. And you know, God's just really opened up the right doors, and he's definitely closed doors too. And I mean, I like to believe that the ones that are closed needed to be closed, yes. You know. And I don't know, I'm just super grateful to be here. I still feel like, you know, I'm fresh off the turnip truck with stuff, and because Lord knows I wasn't expecting this trajectory of my life. Like before the radio show, honestly, Sugar, I mean, I was having a blast just in Kentucky, living, you know, right where all my family lives, and, you know, singing. You know, I would have shows Thursday, Friday, Saturday every week, just doing the thing. And, you know, I thought I was living the dream then, and I was. But now it's like, you know, it's just kind of crazy how life works. I know I'm still just started, but it's been a heck of a ride.
Yeah, no, it has. And, you know, like you said, you're fresh off the turnip truck. It still feels like one of the biggest things I would say is, I think the most important is to never forget where you're from. And you do a very good job as to bringing where you're from to where you're at now and not forgetting your roots. So how did growing up in Kentucky kind of affect where you're at now? Do you give it creds?
Well, you know, you're right on the money. I guess like everything in our lives definitely do, like, you know, I mean, you can leave where you come from, but it's still going to be part of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, whether you like it or not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've been in some situations down here, like, where I'm just like, well, my Kentucky just came out, you know? And I grew up super active in 4-H. And I mean, like, it was my life from like leaf collection all the way through school. I mean, I was president of the county for a couple of years. I went to different national conferences, you know, you name it, I was there with 4-H. And I think that that probably really did, you know, shape my outlook on life, I would guess, you know, because so much of that, they really do teach. I don't want this to sound like 4-H commercial or anything. Really do teach, like, man, like, you got to go after stuff. If you want to do something, you got to roll up your sleeves and work.
Yes.
Oh, and I do think my folks were both that way as well. They really always expected my brother and I to give our best. And that doesn't mean like that, you know, you're going to be the smartest person in the room or the most talented or whatever, but that
if you are the smartest person in the room, usually you're sitting in the wrong rooms.
Oh, preach. Snaps for that, queen. You are not wrong. That's so true. And, you know, both of my folks, they really did pull themselves into another realm, and they chased their dreams, and they really they're really my biggest heroes. I absolutely love my parents so much. And I guess everyone, you know, loves their mom and dad for the most part. You know, sometimes there's, you know, rocky situations, But I think, between that, when I think about Kentucky, I think about my family. I think about, growing up in church and like all of the things that come with that. And also, I mean, really 4-H was just a huge part. So yeah.
If it wasn't for where you're from, you wouldn't be where you're at. Even just like you said, started singing in church, you started singing covers, if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be in Nashville writing with amazing artists and releasing your own music. So to lead into this next question, I'm very, very excited about this one. So I found you, or I don't know how I found you because of this, because we have so many mutuals, but you just released a new song called Devil's Money. And to all the listeners, guys, this song, it's I mean my I think I've given it all of its streams, to be quite honest with you, but I'm going to be playing this song for you after the interview, so hang tight. We're going to talk about it and really build up the anticipation for it. But for anybody obviously who hasn't heard this song, or you're not on TikTok and really seen Mary's promo videos and stuff, what is the backstory behind this song? What does it mean to you? Give us like the picture in your mind as to what this song is about.
Man, that is really cool. And I'm so excited, by the way, Benny, that like music, like, isn't that so crazy? That's how we like found each other. It's literally music. Anyway, not to go on a soapbox with that, but so Devil's Money is a true story. It's about my great granddaddy on my mama's side. And Henry Offutt, that was his name. He was really an interesting feller. He was a very religious man, very close to God, but times were very hard, to be totally blunt. And he was living in Bardstown, Kentucky, which is where the song takes place. And he started running bottles. He was a bootlegger to make ends meet. And one thing led to another. And he really started running a successful operation with bootlegging, but he ended up, in a turn of events, gave almost everything to the church for this church to be built right outside of Bardstown. And that's literally like the backstory of the song.
But it's literally a true story. It's 100%
true story. Now, obviously, like, every single dollar was not towards the church. Obviously, he was living high, on the high a little bit. And also, there were other people in the parish or whatever that gave money too, but literally, like, you go to that church out yonder, New Hope, they literally have like the stained glass windows that like say donated by the Offutt family. And like, so like they have like, and like the pews and stuff like that. Like, so like, it's really crazy. Like years later, I guess it's like 100 years later, technically. Yeah. Cause we're 2024.
Yeah.
That church is still standing. So, I mean, obviously he is gone, but his life is still there. And growing up, I remember my mom telling me about great granddaddy, and it always just totally like fascinated me how this really gray area, because even growing up in the Baptist church, a lot of Baptists don't even drink, obviously, and there's so many layers to that, but like technically what he was doing was wrong because it was illegal, it was in Prohibition era, but he had a justified means for it. So there's so many different layers to that. And I always wondered, what was going on in his noggin, and like, I don't know, like, was it right or wrong? I don't know. Like, there's so many different layers, but I never talked about it down here in Nashville. I never really even, I never had written about it. And one day I was out for a run. I run every day. I love my 5-mile runs.
Oh,
I'm like
5 miles?
5 miles a day, baby. So anyway, I'm just a weird creature of habit. I get up at 5 a.m. every morning. I read, solo write, and go for a run before my sessions. I love it. Anyway, I was on my run, and I don't know what it was that like made me like, trigger this thought, just thinking about, like, man, that really would be a cool song, but I don't even know what you write about, with it. And I kind of planted it in my noggin. Fast forward to the end of last year, I was with one of my best friends, Brian Alexander, and he's written on a lot of stuff for other artists as well, like Sleeve. He was a writer on that with Nate Smith and other songs that we've written together. And then Steve Fee. We were in the writing room, And I brought in a bunch of different song ideas for us to write that day. Literally, I pitched out 4 or 5 ideas, and they're like, what else you got? And I was thinking, this is annoying. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, guys, I do have this story that happened, years and years ago. It's a true story, but I don't really know how we write it exactly. I told them, they're like, oh my gosh, we have to write that. And the song just kind of wrote itself, once we got moving. And I didn't know if people were going to respond to it or not. I was like, how many folks would, even like connect with that? Because it's such a, super, personal story. But then I look at through these comments sections, person after person's like, my great granddaddy was a bootlegger too. My father was. My great uncle was, and they got locked up by the feds or whatever. Like,
well, when I first saw the video, I'm texting in my family group chat. I'm like, hey, do we have any bootleggers in our family history? I'm like, what? My little brother is like a total ancestry geek. I was like, who's our great grand?
I love that.
It's because history is so interesting, and to hear somebody else tell a story about their history, it makes you want to learn yours.
Oh, that's so cool. That's funny. And also, I love that you have a family group chat. I think that's beautiful. Like,
oh yeah. Sometimes I gotta mute that. It's a little much sometimes.
Great problem to have, though. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
I posted the song at the end. It was right before the new year. It was December 30th, and I went to bed. I woke up in the middle of the night to get a drink of water. I checked my phone. I was like, wait, what's happening right here? And I was like, wait, am I like asleep? I looked out, like, I think it's going viral. It had a couple 100,000 views. So like, wow. I went back to sleep. I woke back up, and I was like, later on, in the day, and I was like, did I dream that? Then I looked, and it was like even bigger. And then I told my folks, my dad was like, do you think TikTok's broken? So I think it's actually going viral. And then, now it's like over 20 million views. It's insane. It's just so crazy.
Yeah.
So I was recorded at that point, Sugar. So my producer, who's a good friend of mine, he was out in California, and he was like, so we're going viral, right? And I was like, Brad, we got to get this thing recorded. We got to get this thing out. And he was like, well, I'm in California right now. I'll be back January 2nd, and I can literally record it. Then we can do vocals on January 4th. And so he got all the recording stuff done on that. And then I did Jan 4, and then we got mixed and mastered, all that stuff. And all the while, I'm like, is this going to keep on going, or is it going to stop? I don't know. And it's done its thing.
That is how, I think that just shows for any songwriters or any artist out there, write what feels right to you, because you can think you're writing a great song that's going to take off, it's going to be super relatable, and it does nothing because it sounds the same as all the other ones. But when you have that, I feel like it was so heavy, like it was on your heart. You were like, I need to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know I need to. And you did it, and look what happened.
It is really cool. It's been so neat seeing how people, resonate with it. And it was so crazy, Benny, because I'm an independent artist. I'm not signed, to a manager or a label or nothing. And I don't have like a PR or what, none of that stuff. Whenever I dropped the song, I was like, well, I hope that the people that have seen it on TikTok and Instagram realize it's out, and they, stream it. And they're like, I have no idea. I was like, we're just going to go for this, well, release date happens, and I get a text, hey, you're on the iTunes charts. I'm like, wait, what? And so I pulled it up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're on the iTunes chart, which is like crazy for an independent artist.
Yes.
And we went all the way up to number 7 on the country charts and 17 on all genres. Like,
what?
Yeah. Really? Isn't that crazy? Like, and I know it's not all about numbers. I do realize that. But I will say that, I'm not really a numbers person with like math and stuff. I wish I was, it'd be very helpful. But I think the biggest thing with all of that is a takeaway of like, it touched people's hearts. Obviously, because like, my mom can only download it once, you know what I'm saying? She can only stream it so many times, you know what I'm saying? So it's past that. So anyways, it's been really, really, really cool.
But I think I honestly, what is so great about putting your stuff onto TikTok and onto these platforms is they reach people that otherwise wouldn't listen to country or wouldn't, the new music, it comes on so many different people's For You pages. Someone who only listens to rap, that could come on their For You page and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I love this. So it's reaching different demographics that otherwise it wouldn't. If
That's
you
so
would just release it and your main followers would know, but other than that, no one would know.
that
So
is such a point. And it has been really interesting, Benny, like on the comment sections. Like I have seen a lot of folks that have been like, I never listen to country music, but I love this song. And I'm not saying like all hail Mary's voice. It's not that. I think it's the story. I think folks have just resonated, I guess, with like the idea of like someone doing what they needed to do for their family.
yes.
There's a great area, and then they gave back to the church. I don't know. Like,
Like a
I don't have.
success story in a way. It's like he went and did all this. Like he reached his goals and did what he needed to do in that time to provide. I get what you're saying. Very, yeah, very cool.
It's been really, really, really neat. I'm so grateful. And I was thinking, how wild is it? That was January. You know what I'm saying? I feel like 2024 was going to be a good one. And I mean, we're off to a great start. I gotta say.
We are. Oh my gosh. So you kind of mentioned in your kind of introduction how you started just like playing songs and stuff in Kentucky. Did you start writing or singing first? Did you mention that?
Well, I don't know if I did or not. I talk so much, I
I
never
know,
know.
me too.
That as a little girl, I remember I'd be playing outside with Sparky, our dog, and I'd be making up songs with Sparky around, of course, but I don't know if you count that as actual songwriting or not. I was making up songs always, but if the church doors were open, we were there. And I mean, my mama had me in the church choir like there was no tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not sure, like technically I would say I was singing first probably, but I know I was always like coming up with songs, and I was one of those kids. Oh, go ahead.
There was always something. You always had like sound in your head. You were always creating something.
Yes. And like I remember, for a while I even thought I wanted to write books for a living. And so as a little girl, I'd come home from school and I would be writing these little short stories. And that's not too far from like, what I get to do now, because now it's just a 3 minute short story. You know what I'm saying? It's real short.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, I feel like you have so much in such a short amount of time. You've reached a lot and went through a lot of obstacles and kind of, all in this 3 years or 2 years. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 31. Yeah, which is crazy. So
Oh my gosh.
I feel like in some ways, like, so many people move down to Nashville and they're like 16 or 17. I didn't do that. Like I literally like was up in Kentucky, living life, loving it. And I feel really, really grateful that, I was able to come in later and do it. Now, I mean, I realize there's like Nate's 38,
Yeah.
Nate Smith. Like it's kind of changed. Like I know Lainey's, I want to say 32, maybe she's 31. We're about the same age. I think things have shifted away from like the Selena Gomez, Justin Bieber, like when they're teenagers, but still, like, I mean, I feel so grateful that like I've been able to walk in these doors and things are coming together.
And everybody's path is different. I just saw this thing the other night where it said there's not a timer on success. There's not, your path doesn't have this ticking everybody's path is different. You have people that are being successful at 22 years old and have amazing careers. You have people like Nate who are just taking off and getting the traction that they deserve. So I think that's a good piece of advice for anyone, to just never stop. It doesn't matter if you're 20 or 30 or 40, keep going.
Or like freaking Colonel Sanders. Like he was like something, right? I mean, like, and that's something that's so beautiful. And I think that, my noggin is really, I feel like in the last year, I've really learned a lot. And I know I'm still like got a lot to learn, but one of the things I know, right? Like, and I guess we always want to be learning, but one of the things that, I've really, seen in my own life is like when you put the blinders on, like, cause like, for example, like age, let's just use that because we're talking about that doesn't matter unless you make it matter. It really doesn't matter. Like it actually, like look at Jennifer Lopez. She played the Super Bowl at whatever. Now, obviously that's the pinnacle of success, But like literally like Colonel Sanders, like we were talking about, like he didn't even have anything pop until he was in his 50s. And like, you know, we never think about that now, like, oh, well, he was too old to be trying out. But in the midst of stuff, you almost got to put blinders on, whether that's, you know, about age or about like, you know, lack of resources with money or connections, or like even that, like, you know, even how daunting whatever your dreams are, like everything's tough. You know what I'm saying? Everything is, whether you go for it or not. It's like going to the gym. If you want abs, it's going to be work. But anyone can, you know, go down there and get, you know, real healthy, you know. I mean, there's lots of pieces that go into abs, but it really, the putting the blinders on, like really, like that can be life changing, I
Yeah.
think.
Because you stop comparing yourself to other people. You stop comparing your path and your journey. And I think a lot of people fail because of the comparison to other people, because they don't feel like they're at the spot they should be, or they're not doing as well. But like you said, the blinders have to be on, go for it. Don't let all this stay away, you know, all the outside.
And folks will always have opinions. And, you know, sometimes those opinions are right. Sometimes they're not, though. And wouldn't it be so sad if, like, we limited ourselves to, like, not going after what we want because of an opinion? Like, really? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that seems so much worse to me than going all in on something and failing. You know, because at least then you know, well, I tried. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it,
You're not looking back 20 years later. I wish I would have tried that. I wish I would have done that.
and you know, I don't know, there's lots of things to be said about that, but that could be the whole interview just
Yeah.
talking about. But you know, it is kind of crazy. And I don't even know where I derailed us. I know we were talking about something dealing with music. I went off on a life
I have no
journey.
idea, but that's what makes you so great. You are just very personable and you're very authentic. So we'll jump back in. Um, so what do you think has kind of been the coolest moment in your career?
I mean, you know, I will say that I mean, obviously, like in this last month, I think release day was just insane, you know, with like the charting, and then like also like when you're looking at the phone and you know it's climbing by the thousands views and it keeps on updating like literally every like 5 seconds. That's like insane. I will say though, and obviously like the big cuts and stuff that I've gotten, like I'm so grateful for that. Like literally, I know like a lot of folks don't ever even get to get half of the stuff that like God's blessed me with in the last year. It's just crazy. You know, like signing even a publishing deal for my writing and all the different things like that. But I do think still, like yesterday, I was in a writing room and we were writing this song that I've really been wanting to write for a long time. And we started writing it, and I got those goosebumps. Like it had me full blown like chills. And I don't always get those in every session. I'm not going to act like I do, you know? I got them with Devil's Money, and I've gotten them with a handful of songs, and I got it yesterday. And I was like, this is my favorite thing. You know, that and really talking to people. I love folks. So it's literally those two things, the creating and then connecting with folks. And I just, that's been so cool. I can't believe that I get to do this every day. It's like being a little kid with finger paint. You know what I'm saying? What are we going to paint today? You know?
That is, yeah.
We still have a blast and we get super messy.
And it's so funny. Do you know who John Byron is?
I love John. He's great.
So John, I interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and when I asked him kind of, you know, about writing and stuff, he goes, me and my buddies, and we're sitting in that room and we look at each other and we just smile. Like there is no better feeling than knowing like we get to do this for a living. We are sitting writing words, creating images and visions. How could you want anything else? Like, you know,
beautiful. It's so cool. And like the thing is, you never know what you're going to write that day. You never know, like, and what's crazy too, like you think about like Devil's Money, for example. If I had written that with any other group of people, it would have been a different song. If I had written it any other day than that day, it would have been a different song. Even down to like the temperature of the room. Like if we had been hot, if it hadn't felt good, it would have been a different song. I guarantee it. Like, and so you think about all these little delicate things. It's such a fascinating process. And I feel like the luckiest girl in the world. I really do. And I'm excited to keep on sharing new music with folks and like, you know, keep on writing stuff that hopefully folks resonate with and that they enjoy. And I don't know, it's just super cool.
Should we be expecting anything new in these next few months?
I think definitely.
Okay.
And I can't, I definitely don't have a crystal ball, or I would have been very ready for this last month. It has been a total whirlwind. But I will say that I'm going to keep on, sharing little tidbits of new songs I'm working on. And that's been really cool seeing what songs folks are resonating with, and I'm going to keep on doing that.
Sharing those little snippets, it gives you the idea, okay, this one didn't do so well, maybe it's not all
Yeah.
that we thought it would, and really see. And to kind of wrap this up, I'm going to ask you, I like to ask everybody this question. If you could give one piece of advice to somebody who is interested in doing something that you are doing, whether that's writing or performing, what would it be?
Wow. I mean, I do feel, full disclosure, I'm still so new that, take my advice as a grain of salt, but other than the blinders, 'cause I really do think that's been something that's really changed my world. Truly, I really do think it has. I think that really investing in yourself, whether that be like, trying to eat as healthy as possible and like exercising, filling your brain with like, great stories, reading books, watching movies. I mean, like literally, and that sounds so not exciting, like that's not that grandiose, but everything you put in is going to be coming back out. The input's so important. And someone told me about a year ago, it's a pretty powerful feller in town, in the publishing industry. He gave me a piece of advice. I asked him, I said, if you were talking to someone else at this point in my career, what would you tell them to do? And he said, Mary, I would tell them to put the blinders on and dig, 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 like right. Don't look up and look around. Like, are people paying attention to me? Are people cutting these songs, recording these songs that I'm writing? Like, have I had success at? Don't do that. Literally just work. And then that's how you're going to see the results. And
Love
that's
that.
what I really worked on this past year specifically, that I really took those words to heart. And you plant so many seeds in just about any industry. You definitely do in the music industry. You write every single song as a seed. Every time you walk into a writing room, you might be changing your life that day. You don't know. You really don't know. And so you got to give it all you've got, but then you got to like plant the seed and move on to the next seed. And then eventually, like most of those seeds, it's like, my dad loves to garden and I love those fresh vegetables. Oh my gosh. And like most of those seeds, you plant extra seeds because a lot of them won't sprout, But if you plant enough seeds, some things will sprout. And, it's back to like back in COVID era, whenever I was doing those Zooms, I remember, well, I'll just tell you, last year I wrote 458 or 57. It's one of the two, different sessions last year. And most of those songs, now I do realize I write a lot more than most folks in town, and that's fine. Everyone's wired different. But I know that probably half of those songs people won't even hear. They might be good songs, they might be great songs, but there's so many pieces that are involved with songs coming out, politics, all that stuff, But all it takes is one song to really change your life,
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's the advice I would give. Just go all in, give it all you got.
Yeah, I love that. I think people get scared, and people are scared of the judgment and scared of what will happen if they fail. But I think that Mary's story, guys, really kind of just shows you just go after what you want. Doesn't like we said, doesn't matter what age you are. If you want something, go after it and just put your head down and grind. Don't the whole world doesn't need to know. Just do it, and one day it'll pay off. So I mean, I could sit here and we could talk for hours, but I mean, isn't Mary just amazing, guys? Like I am so blessed that she wanted and agreed to come on The Rise with me and hang out with me and just talk about music, songwriting, the journey, and what her, career means.